In the 2002 classic, Cabin Fever, the characters Paul and Marcy engage in a brief affair in the second half of the movie. Many viewers have commented on how out of place the scene feels. It continues to be a divisive scene amongst viewers, as both Paul and Marcy began the movie with different love interests. Many have commented that Paul and Marcy should never have gotten together, and many believe that it was unrealistic for their friendship to become sexual. I have already made a video that explores how Paul and Marcy's friendship progresses throughout the movie. But in this video, I would like to explore a theory that Paul and Marcy's relationship was much more than just a special bond that developed in the midst of a crisis. In fact, Paul and Marcy may well have been a perfect match for one another. And perhaps, Cabin Fever is filled with numerous hints that these two belonged together. I'm YouTuber and Cabin Fever fan, Heat and Chills. Join me as we explore Cabin Fever's secret messages about Paul and Marcy. Let's begin with the most obvious clues. Cabin Fever repeatedly depicts Paul and Marcy with a striking visual symmetry to one another. In several back-to-back shots, they are depicted in a perfect symmetrical fashion to each other. Cabin Fever begins drawing a visual link between these two long before they end up in bed together. In a more subtle fashion, Paul and Marcy's stories mirror one another across the movie. On the second day, Marcy can't sit still and ventures out into the woods, while Paul stays behind in the cabin. On the third day, they reverse these roles, Paul ventures out, while Marcy stays in the cabin. They alternate making a passive and active response to their common crisis. Either way, they both fail to accomplish anything. Additionally, they both take a gruesome bath, at exactly the same time. This is an exceptional coincidence. It's also interesting that we watch them both taking a lonely journey to the lake house, in the hope of getting help. Both of them do something bad, but with good intentions. Marcy trespasses on private property. Paul accidentally peeps on the naked woman while searching for someone to help him. Both of them are punished for their misbehavior, with a jump scare. Now let's examine how the movie showcases their personalities. During their introductions, both Paul and Marcy are the only two characters to demonstrate selflessness. Paul tries to befriend a lonely kid, then tries to protect him from his abusive father. And Marcy talks about wanting to buy a gift for Jeff's mom.
We should get something for your mom here to say thanks.
They are the only two, out of the 5 lead characters, who demonstrate any selflessness before they arrive at the cabin. The movie continues dropping hints that they are much more compassionate than their friends. This unique selflessness is extremely important, as it is what ultimately brings them together as lovers. They are left at the cabin alone because they are the only 2 people who are too selfless to abandon Karen. If they hadn't stayed in the cabin alone together, they would never have had sex. In terms of their love lives, we see that they are both tied up in their own separate romantic situations. But the movie indicates that in both cases, they are caught up with a love interest who is bad for them. Jeff is explicitly shown to be a jerk towards Marcy. and Bert delivers a line that implies that Karen manipulates Paul unfairly.
She likes you because you're nice to her, and she's nice to you because she can control you, and she's nice to you because she can control you.
It seems that both Marcy and Paul could do better for themselves.
Asshole!
One last subtle detail they have in common is that they are the only two characters who voluntarily interact with children. This may be a hint that they share an interest in having children of their own someday. Their friends show no interest in children, perhaps suggesting that their love interests, Jeff and Karen, have different life goals. Finally, we should examine how Paul and Marcy directly interact with one another. Early on, we see them share a bit of playful banter over the campfire.
Paul, trauma bonds people. You can tell us.
Trauma bonds with people who go through it, not the people you tell it to.
This occurs when Paul is frustrating everyone with his reluctance to tell his campfire story. It's unusual that Marcy would be so gentle with Paul, because we see throughout the movie that she doesn't hesitate to lash out at people who irritate her. Likewise, Paul doesn't hesitate to contradict Marcy, when we see in other places that he is normally shy towards strong characters.
Just tell them the fucking story, man.
Alright.
Paul and Marcy seem to have a special friendship that overrides their normal character traits and prevents them from fighting or hurting one another. In fact, as the tension and frustrations grow within the cabin, Paul and Marcy are the only two who never come into conflict with one another. Most importantly, on the third morning, we see that they are an extremely effective team when they work together. Together, they do the best possible job of caring for Karen that anybody could have done. Between their visual symmetry, their narrative symmetry, their common character traits, and the strength of their friendship, Cabin Fever seems to drop a lot of clues that Paul and Marcy are like minds, kindred spirits. Without meaning to, they walk the same paths and end up in the same places because they think and feel very similar to one another. Perhaps Cabin Fever was trying to tell us that Paul and Marcy would have made a great couple, and that the real reason they made love was because, deep down, they felt that they belonged together. Depending on how you look at it, they may even have been destined to end up as lovers. What do you think? Do you think that Paul and Marcy would have been a good couple? Do you believe Cabin Fever contains any other secret messages about its story? Tell us what you think in the comments. And be sure to hit that like button. Also, check the description for a link to my full essay about the untold backstory behind Paul and Marcy.